The date is April 18th, 1830, and a schooner is sailing off the coastline of Georgia near the small town of Darien. Suddenly, the captain, a man by his surname Delano, spots something unusual in the water. He shouts for his crew, and 5 other men approach the rail and look into the briny depths, trying to understand what they are seeing. When they returned to shore, they gave their report to a local newspaper, the Savannah Georgian, who printed their account. Somewhere just off St. Simon's Island, at the mouth of the Altamaha River, they saw a creature that was estimated to be 70 feet long and 8 feet in diameter. It had the head of an alligator and moved through the water effortlessly. In any other place, well, that might be cause for ridicule and accusations of drinking on the job. But around these parts, it was just another sighting of the famous Altamaha, known affectionately by the locals as Alti. To understand why Captain Delano and the rest of the crew of the schooner Eagle were met with almost casual indifference, we need to understand a little more about the area where we were sailing. And lucky for you, I'm from Georgia. The water in the ocean there is pretty gross. The Altamaha River flows from far inland to the east, fed by the Oconee and Oconee rivers, and is one of the largest feeds of fresh water into the Atlantic. With a myriad of waterways, smaller offshoots, and vast flowing water of varying speeds and depths, the diverse land that it crosses creates the perfect environment for many plants and animals to thrive. So much so that in the early 1990s, it was officially declared a bioreserve in an effort to ensure it was protected and maintained free of pollution, or really anything else that would upset the critical network of water supporting such diverse life. At the mouth of the Altamaha River in the southeast of Georgia, it is around here that many of the sightings of the fabled Altamaha have been recorded, and I'm like 40% sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. But not just in recent times, but way back into history as well. The hotspots for, spotting the creature of myth seem to center around the town of Darien, McIntosh County in general, and Butler Island. But really, there have been reports all up and down the waterway, mainly centering around the mouth of the river where it meets the ocean. Branching off the main river, there are enormous swaths of marshland and abandoned rice fields, crisscrossed by river channels that have long since been forgotten and canals that haven't seen regular use since sometime in the 1800s. This combination of large, empty branches of water and relatively barren land lend themselves almost perfectly to the sort of mythical sightings that seem to have cropped up around here almost since recorded history began. Long before the region was colonized and settled by the British, the local Tama people had their own tales of something lurking in the water. And if you've ever been to Georgia, you know all of our waters are muddy and brown and you can't actually really see anything, so it's horrifying when you're walking in it. Anyways, that's why when you float down rivers tubing, you drink. But while they never named it or made any attempt to locate it, they told of a snake-like monster that inhabited the river, one that hissed and bellowed if they were nearby. It doesn't seem as though they were overly frightened of the beast, nor even they found it really particularly unusual, only that they were aware of it and left it alone. Seemingly an arrangement that had been reciprocated, as they never recorded anyone being hurt or killed by the river monster, and that's because it probably ate everybody who would have ever seen it. From then, even through modern times, many aspects of Alti's physical appearance seem to be consistent. Spotters describe his color as almost either a white or gray, occasionally with darker shades molted around his body. Others maintain that his body is dark and smooth. Most see only the middle portion of his body undulating above the waves, but some describe a darker ridged back. If any of the sightings have him breaching the surface, there seem to be flippers at his side, towards the upper portion of his body. No limbs appeared towards the lower end, and short glimpses of white and yellow underbelly can be seen. The neck, when it appears above the waves, is long and slender with a small head proportional to the rest of its immense body. It has been described by some as similar to that of an alligator. More specified and detailed, yet somehow less believable, spotters claim to have seen a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth and a snake-like spiny tail. If we take all these general observations and collate them into an overview, any among us familiar with cryptids will find them fairly familiar. Each one of these physical attributes is similar to a couple of others, maybe more famous alleged monsters of the sea kind of comes up in your mind. And there may be actually a reason for that. The town of Darien was founded by Scotsmen, specifically one from the Highlands, men who inhabited the land with their own monster, the Loch Ness Monster. I mean, it sounds exactly like it. Now, I've been told apparently it's not Loch, it's something else. I looked it up and all I could find was Loch. So if you're from Scotland, what do you call Nessie? I always thought it was Loch Ness Monster. Anyways, so before it became known as Darien, the township was initially called New Iverness. There are some that believe these Scottish settlers brought with them more than a name in tales of legend. They actually brought a miniature Nessie. And some even claim they may have been followed over the pond by something a little more substantial. It's Nessie. Nessie, as the Loch Ness Monster is affectionately known, is one of the most universally recognized cryptids worldwide, second only perhaps to Bigfoot. And it's hard to ignore the similarities between the sightings of Nessie and Alti. Both have been spotted and had their sightings recorded for incredible lengths of time in human history. There are descriptions of something lurking in the murky waters of Loch Ness for as long as human beings have been keeping track of said history. And I remember watching actually one show where this guy was swimming in the middle of Loch Ness, and you could not see about an inch deep in that water, and he's like, yeah, I'm out in the middle here. I'm totally fine. There's no Loch Ness monster in here. And then he dives down there, and thalassophobia just shot up to 1,000 for me. But both of these animals are remaining relatively elusive. While there are sightings over the years, it isn't as though a new one is popping up every single day, and it isn't like these sightings are reserved only for those who set out to seek them. While there are plenty of people who make observations and have close encounters when they are specifically looking for these beasts, the vast majority are from people who were simply going about their normal day-to-day business and then see something that somehow defies reality. The descriptions of long, snake-like bodies are the same. Both appear to move through the water in a snake-like motion. Both are incredible in terms of their overall body length and have the same long, thin neck with a small head at the end. Flippers on the body, a long tail, no lower appendages, and a spiny back. It would actually be shorter to list off the differences between the two of them. Some believers think that when these Scotsmen traveled across the Atlantic to America and then made their home in the modern state of Georgia, it's entirely possible that Nessie followed them over, or at least a member of the same family, which means Scotsmen are just like completely cursed. Given the similarities and consistencies that seem to think that, probably unknowingly, these settlers brought across their very own pet monster, it made itself right at home along with the humans that accidentally led it there. And Alti isn't even the only water beast to inhabit the American shores. There is Champ, a creature who calls Lake Champlain its home. The lake between New York and Vermont is freshwater, as seems to be the case with the entire tribe of creatures, and much like Alti and Nessie, has transcended its status as beast of mystery and intrigue. All of these creatures seem to straddle the societal line where even if most of the locals don't really believe in them, it is good for the community to encourage the sightings. Champ is the mascot of the local sports team and is featured heavily in tourist attraction information. Nessie has her own visitor center, complete with a statue and model outside, and there are dedicated tours and exhibitions and attractions as well that are all centered around the idea of bringing people in from outside areas to try and seize their chance to catch a glimpse of these mysterious creatures. Personally, if you want to know something really horrifying, if you go up near Vogel State Park in North Georgia, you'll find that somebody is running a town or a little mock town out there, and it has nothing but mannequins everywhere. I went into that town. I'm pretty sure a piece of my soul is now a mannequin left in that area. So apart from Alti, Georgia has another claim to fame. Anyways, it could be argued that it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle, actually. The more you expect to see something, the more likely you are to interpret anomalies as something more than they are. The more an area benefits from seeing these things, the more likely they may be to see them, because humans are social creatures. Many more skeptics argue that it starts really moving towards becoming sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. However, there are other aspects to these far-flung yet similar monster stories and sightings. The first is that these stories appear from so far back in history, long before they could have been able to communicate between one another, that it's a little disturbing. How is it that such disparate cultures and such distant locations all came up with the same basic idea of a lake or loch monster? How would it be possible for tribes and groups that had no interaction whatsoever to independently agree on such minute details and descriptions? Surely this alone should give us pause that there must be some merit to what's lurking below the waves all over the world. Even in places such as Florida and the Carolinas, there are reports of a snake-like creatures roaming the waterways that claim to defy scientific explanation. Just because they haven't achieved the same frame and star power as these other three, they're just more questions to add to the rest and more to try to kind of figure out. While there have been tales and legends depicting a creature otherwise known inhabiting the waters from before colonization, there was renewed interest in Alti in 2018. On a beach 12 miles from the town of Darien, rotting remains were found washed up on the shore. Remains that bore a striking resemblance to the descriptions of Alti, and the reaction was somewhat mixed. Some truly thought this could be physical proof that Alti was in fact real, or had been at some point. Maybe it was evidence that there were several of these beasts roaming around. Obviously, this would be a stable kind of population sort of deal. Perhaps it was finally the case that all of our reports over the years were going to be proven correct and accurate. And this could be the ultimate and final vindication the believers have been waiting on for so many years. These ideas, though, soon proved to be unfounded, and it was exposed as a hoax. An anonymous artist based in New York, who goes by the name Zardalu the Myth Maker, took responsibility. Of course, his name is Zardalu. Zardalu had previously found similar success, if you can call it that, by hoaxing a three-eyed fish and getting at least some to believe them. The true purpose or intent of this hoax has never really been fully explained, probably for money, but the artist did reveal that it was a shark model that had some paper mache that they used to simulate a rotting corpse. But this modern spoof truly undersells just how widespread and diverse the sightings of this monster have been all throughout history. And a lot of them are from people who had no reason to embellish forged or otherwise were untrustworthy, and sometimes even scientific individuals themselves would see these things. In the 1500s, an artist was roaming the area, charged with making drawings of local plants and animals. Unfortunately, he was the great-great-great-grandfather of Zardal. No, he wasn't, just kidding. But his depictions of some of the alligators in the region bear more of a resemblance to Alti or Nessie than any alligator known to modern science. It is unknown whether he believed the creatures that he was sketching to be remarkable in any way, or if he truly thought they were just typical animals of the region. In the 1800s, newspapers began printing reported sightings detailing it only as sea monster. This was the report paraphrased at the beginning of the video, where a schooner captain and his crew said that they encountered a monster 70 feet in length, with a body as broad as a barrel and a head similar to an alligator. In the 1900s, it really brought no relief from the constant sightings and reports. Hunters and sailors alike saw a snake-like monster swimming through the river with varying and disparate sizes and descriptions offered. As time moved towards the modern age, the reports kept coming in. A crabber described it as the world's biggest eel. Some rough footage even appeared as we stumbled into the age of film, where ordinary people got the ability to take photographs and videos. It became almost a point of local pride, a legend that was native to the area and gave those who lived there something to hang their hat on, something to point to and look at and say to others, hey, this is what I live around. How lucky am I? People set up dedicated tours to see it, taking tourists out onto the waterways to visit hotspots, regaling them with tales and history of the area and their local monster. Information centers popped up providing additional details and selling merch bearing the likeness of the most elusive local celebrity. While the sightings and spottings of Alti have been widespread, there is a hotspot around the town of Darien specifically. Despite its low population of less than around 2,000 people, it's clear that the intrigue and mystery of Alti brings in passing traffic that also brings in trade, which brings in money. It's little wonder that Alti is thought of affectionately by the local population. The local area has leaned heavily into the legend and the intrigue, with the likeness of Alti appearing on billboards, on posters, and even in his own statue, which we totally didn't steal from the Scots. Even those who enjoy the attention the elusive river monster brings are aware that it is a little preposterous to some that don't believe. The president of the Chamber of Commerce described sightings going back 250 years, and some of the people hadn't even been drinking. The model of the Altamaha was created by Rick Spears, an artist and illustrator whose back catalog betrays perhaps his own bias. He provided the art for a book titled Tale of the Cryptids. When collating the evidence from sightings to make his model, he had the following observations to make. You don't have any hard evidence like fossils, which can indicate placement of the muscles. They say it undulates up and down, but fish and reptiles move from side to side, so it's mammalian. Some say it breathes steam or warm air, which suggests that it has lungs. Things like that don't have a basis in reality. And as a biologist, a little bit, yeah. But those that are less inclined to go along with the idea of prehistoric monsters surviving eons into the modern day have come up with some other possible candidates that could explain some, if not all, of the sightings. Many of the issues surrounding the reports on Alti and other creatures come from the inaccuracy in their recording of size and length. Most people simply aren't equipped to make a reasonable estimation on a sudden object breaching the surface at an unknown distance. Maybe it's a much smaller creature in reality. Like, have you ever heard a fisherman tell you for the 10th time how big a fish is like 2 years later? The thing is essentially gonna break records. But one of the more common of these is that maybe it's just straight up a freshwater seal of some description. Possibly a sturgeon, which has also been suggested for both Champ and Nessie, is another popular candidate suggested by those of a more pragmatic mindset. Or perhaps an alligator gar, maybe an oarfish, could be some sort of whale. Otters have been known to swim up in groups, one after the other in formation. Is it possible that these series of dark humps that are claimed to be Alti swimming through the water was just a traveling group of otters? Or perhaps it is a pod of dolphins causing the same visual illusion. While all these are possibilities, and they do seem possible or plausible to some degree, it bears mentioning that not all who have seen Alti are landlubbers. Many are experienced sailors and fishermen, anglers, or boat captains who would be intimately familiar with the appearance, behavior, and location of even the most rarely seen sea creatures. Also, experienced seafarers would be far less likely to grossly overestimate the size and scale of a creature when they rely so heavily on making accurate judgments on distance every single day. As with most legends of great unknown beasts lurking in a body of water, the science of skeptics is ready and waiting to try to take it down. Hi, welcome to the channel. That's why I'm here. Usually. Sometimes it's just cool to not try to take things down, but one of the most glaring issues, not only in the case of Alti, but with most cryptids, is the lack of clear photographic or video evidence. Gone are the days when spotters and sighters had to either happen to have expensive and cumbersome equipment on them or be professional photographers. Now, most of us carry a phone in our pockets that can take images clearer and more stable than the highest end tech was capable of decades ago. Cameras are everywhere. They're lightweight, accessible, constantly in our hands, and available to us at a moment's notice. We can and do record footage of random, inane events at an alarming rate to either clog up our memory or post online. How is it then, ask the skeptics, that just as soon as the ability to record definitive proof became so widespread, Alti became so shy? Why did Nessie decide to stay hidden well below the surface when the iPhone came out? Did underwater imaging advancements scare away Champ? These are very real questions if phrased a bit sarcastically and would make a lot of sense to anyone looking from the outside. However, the response from believers is quite simple. Sightings are rare, they always have been, and they continue to be. The people that spot Alti are not often actively looking for him. Some are entirely engaged in other things such as fishing or sailing and have no inclination to record a random unknown event that has no significance to them. Equally, a lot of the footage and images that have been released have been taken by those that were recording totally different things. Someone filming the area in general may not have even noticed the shadows moving under the surface in the corner of their frame. Those taking overhead shots might not pay attention to the dark mass moving along at a pace. The more scientifically minded also point to the unlikelihood of a creature of that size surviving in waterways and tributaries for so long undetected. Would there even be enough food to sustain it? What would it eat? Given that the sightings have been going on for so long now, what is the likelihood that there is still the same unknown creature? While we know that creatures like the Greenland shark, for instance, can live for multiple hundreds of years, is it even possible that this would be a single creature? There are sightings that have happened so long that at an absolute minimum, you would think there probably just has to be a breeding pair. And much in the same way that we have no proof of the existence of Alti and its kind, we also do not have any definitive answers for these questions that make their existence seem unlikely. As with many things in nature, we come to a very common impasse. For those that believe, there is nothing that will stop them from believing. And for those that don't, in the believer's mind anyway, there is no evidence that will ever be enough. Where you choose to come down on the issue will depend on a lot of things. Your own personal tolerance for skepticism is one. Are you the sort of person that needs every single aspect of an issue thoroughly and rigorously explained before you accept it? Or are you willing to go on a little bit of faith? One thing is clear, there is an interest in the Altamaha that is not going to go away. As long as there are still those that believe, there will still be those that want to seek him out. There will be people willing to spend time and money to have their very own chance at meeting a legend, no matter what scientists have to say on the matter. Those same people could just become patrons for my Patreon. Tragic. Alti has been featured on TV with an episode of Beasts of the Bayou dedicated to it. The program looked into the details of the sightings, the possibility that was a hoax, and the full history. The crew then set out to get their very own recording of this elusive creature, and all they attracted was a curious manatee. Efforts to record Alti are continuing with underwater cameras and guided tours, but the truth is, we may never know with absolute certainty if there really is something incredible swimming around the mouth of the Altamaha River. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, then leaving a like would be great, and subscribing is a great way to stay up to date on when I post. And remember, the deal still stands, and actually, after talking with the Lore Lodge the other day, if I can get this channel up to 1 million subscribers by 2027, we will go hunt the Michigan Dogman, and who knows, maybe in 3 or 4 years, I'll talk to Wendigoon at some point, maybe we can bring him. Doesn't really matter, I'm probably gonna go up there regardless, but you should still subscribe. And speaking of subscriptions, my patrons come to mind, so I want to thank them real quick. First, at the literal Wendigo tier, we have Grayson West. Thank you, sir. And then to the eyewitness of the accounts, we have Mushroom Dance. At first-hand accounts, we have Beaver Malaga, I'm pretty sure. And then at second-hand accounts, we have Kanan Johnson, Justice Davis, Troy, and Just Troy. And to the rest of my patrons, I thank you guys as well. Your help goes a long way towards keeping everything running and is greatly appreciated. I don't know if I sounded a little weird this episode. I just got done driving 22 hours. I'm a little wore out. This took a while to do because I kept misreading things. I'm gonna go take a nap. I appreciate you watching and listening, and I'll see y'all in the next one.